Hi guys, welcome back. From today, we are starting with microservices. Before going to start microservices, first we need to understand what is monolith architecture, what are the advantages of using monolith architecture, what are the disadvantages of monolith architecture. Then we will jump into microservices architecture. All right, let's get started. First, we can develop our application in two ways. One is by using monolith architecture and the second one is by using microservices architecture. Guys, remember this monolith microservices architectures not specific to one programming language, not specific to one technology. Java people can use monolith architecture and microservices architecture. Similarly, Python developers can use monolith or microservices to develop their project. Similarly, .NET people also can use monolith or microservices to develop their applications. Monolith and microservices are architectural design patterns to develop our applications. It is just deciding what is our project architecture, not specific to Java. Microservices means not related to only Java. In the .NET, microservices will be available. In the Python, microservices will be available. In Java, microservices will be available. So monolith and microservices are called as architectural patterns. Now, if we take one application, in our application, user interface will be available, business logic will be available, and persistence logic will be available, and database will be available. As we know that already, database is used to store the data. To communicate with the database, we will develop repositories or DAO classes. That is called persistence layer. Persistence layer is responsible to communicate with the database. Business logic, our operations. Suppose, for example, I want to create some queries dynamically. I want to generate the data in the Excel format or PDF format. I want to do some calculations on the data. I want to apply some formulas on the data. I want to do some validations on the data. Such kind of logic we are going to develop as part of business layer. And user interface will be available. That is presentation layer. Whatever that we want to display to the end user, that is available in the user interface. So if you go for any application, user interface, business layer, persistence layer, and a database will be available. Now here guys, if you develop user interface, business logic, and persistence logic as part of one single application, that is called as monolith architecture. If you develop all the functionalities in the project as one application, that application is called as monolith architecture application. So what is monolith architecture? If we develop all the functionalities in single project, then it is called as monolith architecture based application. So when we develop monolith application, we will package that application as a jar file or war file to deploy into server. So as all the functionalities are available in one application, that jar is called as a fat jar or fat war. That means it is heavyweight jar file or heavyweight war file. It is called as heavyweight jar file or heavyweight war file because all the functionalities will be developed in one application. So now, for example, let us take one e-commerce application or any other application. I'm taking Make My Trip application. In the Make My Trip application, if you see here, flights booking available, hotels booking available, trains booking, buses booking, cabs booking, user login, several functionalities are available. If you develop all these functionalities as one single application, then that application is called as monolith architecture based application. What is the meaning of monolith? If we develop all the functionalities in single project, then it is called as monolith architecture based application. When we go for monolith application, we will package our application as a jar file or war file to deploy into server. As monolith application contains all functionalities, it will become fat WAR file or fat jar file. What are the advantages of going with the monolith? Single project only we are going to develop for all the requirements. So it will be simple to develop that project. And everything will be available at one place. Presentation layer, business layer, persistence layer, everything will be available in the single project. So here the project development will be simple. Everything will be available at one place. Configurations required only once. Suppose my project want to communicate with the database. At one place, I'm going to configure my data source properties. Hotel booking, flight booking, cabs booking, clients booking, everything I developed as one application. That one application will communicate with the database. So if you develop the project like this, that project is called as monolith application. And these are advantages of monolith application. What are the disadvantages of the monolith application? The disadvantages of the monolith application is, the first one is difficult to maintain the project. Okay, so tomorrow I want to change some business logic. If I change some business logic in the project, the whole project will be affected because hotel booking, flights booking, clients booking, cabs booking, everything is developed under one application. Tomorrow, if I make some changes to the trains booking, that may affect on the hotels booking, that may affect on the flights booking. So if you develop everything in one project, that will become difficult to maintain. Dependencies among the functionalities. Single point of failure. Suppose, for example, there is a problem in the hotels booking code, our application ran into problem. When application ran into problem, complete project will be down. That is called single point of failure. And for example, if I make any code changes in the trains booking, then the whole project need to be packaged and the whole project needs to be deployed again. For one small change in the hotel booking functionality, the whole project I need to package and the whole project I need to redeploy in the server. So like this, when you go for monolith architecture, we are having some advantages as well as we are having some disadvantages also. First of all, what is monolith? If we develop all the functionalities in one project, that is called as monolith application, monolithic architecture. So the advantages with the monolithic architecture, it is simple to develop. Everything will be available at one place and a configuration required only once in the project. Suppose my project want to communicate with the database configuration. My project want to communicate with the Kafka configuration. Configurations we are going to do only at one place. But the disadvantages, it is difficult to maintain. Dependencies will be available among the functionalities. Single point of failure, that means if one small functionality failed, then the whole project will be down in the monolithic. And entire project redeployment. Okay, whenever there is a minor change in the project, then I need to redeploy my entire application. So earlier, people used to follow monolithic architecture to develop the project. Now, to overcome the problems of the monolithic architecture, now people are going for microservices architecture. So what is this? Here, to overcome the problems of the monolithic microservices architecture came into picture. The first thing that we need to remember, microservices is not a programming language. Microservices is not a programming language. Microservices is not a framework. Microservices is not a specification API. We have servlets API, JDBC API, JSP API, like that. But microservices is not a programming language. Microservices is not a framework. Microservices is not a specification. Microservices is architectural design pattern. Monolithic is one design pattern. Similarly, microservices is also one design pattern. Microservices is suggesting to develop application functionalities with a loosely coupling. Okay, now here if you observe, flights available, hotels available, trains available, cabs available. There are different functionalities. There is no relation between flight booking and hotel booking. There is no relation between hotel booking and trains booking. These are different functionalities. So when these are different functionalities, why we need to develop everything in one project? Why we need to keep tightly coupling? So that's where, to overcome challenges with the monolith architecture, this microservices architecture came into picture. What is microservices? Microservices is an architectural design pattern. Microservices are suggesting to develop application functionalities with loosely coupling. One functionality should be loosely coupled with the another functionality. In microservices architecture, we don't develop all functionalities in the single project. We will divide the project functionalities into several REST APIs. Now, if you see, I want to develop an application like a Make My Trip. Hotels booking, trains booking, flights booking, cabs booking, reports, like that several functionalities are available. Instead of combine everything in one project, I will follow divide and conquer. I will follow divide and conquer. So what is the meaning of that? For the hotels booking, the business logic will be developed in one REST API, that is called one service or one microservice. For the cabs booking functionality, I will develop one project. For a trains booking functionality, I will develop one project. Okay, so like this, for every functionality, one separate service will be created. This is architecture to develop a project. So as we discussed earlier, people use it to develop everything in one project. If we develop all the functionalities in the single project, then that project is called as monolithic architecture. So there are some challenges involved in the monolithic architecture. To overcome the challenges of the monolithic architecture, people are going for microservices architecture. As we discussed, to overcome the problems of the monolithic microservices architecture came into market. Microservices is not a programming language. Microservices is not a framework. Microservices is not an API. Microservices is not a framework, not a programming language, not an API. So Java is a programming language, right? C# is a programming language. Python is a programming language. Spring is a framework. JDBC is a API. But microservices is not like that. Microservices is an architectural design pattern. Any project, any technology project can use microservices architecture. What this microservices is telling, boss, don't develop everything in one project. You have hotels booking, flights booking, trains booking, cabs booking. So for these four functionalities, develop four projects. Those are called as four services. Every service is responsible to perform one operation. So the first service will take care of only hotels booking. The second project will take care of only trains booking. Third project will take care of only flights booking. Fourth project will take care of only cabs booking. Fifth project will take care of only payment integration. Like this, we need to divide our project functionality into multiple services. The process of developing our application functionality by dividing into multiple services is called microservices development. Earlier, people used to develop the project by using monolithic architecture. To overcome the problems of the monolithic architecture, people are going for microservices architecture. Now, if you see here, in the monolithic architecture, everything will be integrated in one project. The business logic, persistence logic, user interface, cabs booking, flights booking, trains booking, hotel booking, everything will be available in one project. One project will communicate with one database. Then the problem is maintenance. If there is any problem in the project, single point of failure. Monolithic application, whole project will be down. So to overcome the problems of that monolith, we are going for microservices. When it comes to the microservices, you see 3 microservices, 6 microservices are available. Every microservice is one project, that is one REST API. Multiple microservices will be available. Those are called as backend services, or we can call them as backend APIs. Those are called as backend services, or we can call them as backend APIs. Backend APIs. For all the backend APIs, user interface will be available. When user perform the operation on the UI, from the UI, request will go to backend. Suppose when you click on flights booking, so when you search for the flights, you select the dates, you select the destination details, source, destination, date, click on search. Whenever you click on the search from the UI, the request will go to hotels. Hotels are whatever you're selecting, flights. Whenever you click on flights search option, from the user interface, request will go to flights microservice. Flights microservice will get the data from the database, will give it to the UI. When you click on hotels booking, for example, I want to book some hotel. So click on hotel, search the place, select the date, select the city, date, time, and all the details. Click on search. When you click on search, the request will go from the UI to hotels backend API. Hotels API will communicate with the database, will give the data to the UI. So now tomorrow, when I want to change some logic in the cabs booking, only I will change the cabs project and I will deploy only cabs project. And if there is any problem in the hotels project, only hotels functionality will be down. The remaining functionalities will be up and running. So loosely coupling, easy maintenance, high availability will be available for the project when you develop that project by using microservices architecture. Are you guys clear? What is monolithic architecture and what is microservices architecture? Are you guys able to understand what is monolithic architecture and what is microservices architecture? Monolithic architecture means everything will be developed in the single project. So redeploying the entire project is required. When there is a small change in the project, whole application should be redeployed. And when there is a problem, the whole project will be down. Right? So to overcome all the problems, people are converted from monolithic architecture to microservices architecture. Microservices is not a programming language. It is not a framework. It is not an API. Then what is microservices? Microservices is an architectural design pattern. Microservices are suggesting to develop application functionalities with loosely coupling. Microservices suggesting to develop application functionalities with loosely coupling. In microservices architecture, we don't develop all the functionalities in single project. We will divide project functionalities into several REST APIs. One REST API is called as one microservice. You see here, there are multiple microservices available. One microservice can talk to another microservice. That means one REST API can talk to another REST API. And the microservices can communicate with the database also. User interface will be separate. Backend APIs will be separate. Frontend will be separate. Backend will be separate. Frontend, one application will be available. In the backend, multiple services will be available. Whenever request comes from the UI, that will go to backend microservice. Tomorrow, when there is a problem in one microservice, only that functionality will be down. Remaining services will be up and running. Every microservice is one project. Every microservice will run in a separate server. Tomorrow, I want to change some logic in the train tickets booking functionality. I will change only this third microservice related to trains booking. I will redeploy only this microservice. The remaining microservices will not be affected. So here, microservices are nothing but loosely coupling. So it is architectural design pattern. Can we develop a .NET application with microservices architecture? Guys, microservices, is it related to only Java or it is architectural pattern that anybody can use it? It is not only for Java. Anybody can use this microservices pattern to develop the application. So can I say microservices is related to only Java projects? No, it is a universal design pattern. It is an architecture. Anybody can use this architecture to develop this application. Okay, so when we go for this microservices architecture, what are the advantages available? When we go for microservices architecture, what are the advantages available? The first one is loosely coupling. One API is loosely coupled with the another API. Flights booking, clients booking, there is no relation. Both APIs are loosely coupled APIs and easy to maintain. So tomorrow, when I want to make a code changes, do I need to bother about all the APIs, or I can change only particular API and I can redeploy particular API? When I want to make a code change, do I need to bother about the whole application, or I need to bother about that particular API? Loosely coupling will be available and easy maintenance will be available. Okay, faster development. So I want to deliver clients booking functionality. Okay, I can develop that particular API. I can deliver that particular API for the testing. I can develop particular API and I can deliver that particular API. So faster development will be available. Quick deployments will be available. I no need to redeploy the whole application. Which functionality is modified, only that API you can redeploy when you go for microservices. Faster releases will be available. Quickly we can complete the development testing and we can release one API. Lesser downtime will be available. So now in this hotel, train, flight, cabs, reports, payment. Suppose for example, here my hotels API is not working. My hotels API is not working. So if the hotels API having a problem, the whole project will be down, or only hotels functionality will be down? The whole project will be down, or only hotels functionality will be down? Whole project will be down, or only hotels functionality will be down? Come on. Only hotels functionality will be down in that. And another advantage is technology independence, guys. There is another advantage called technology independence. So here UI is separate project, backend are separate projects. One API I developed by using Java, another API I developed by using .NET. Any problem? Any problem? No. For the UI, backends are REST APIs. UI will send a request to backend REST API. Backend REST API will take JSON as the input, will do the operation, will give the JSON as the output. That's it. UI application don't know what is your backend API. So UI will send you a HTTP request with the JSON data. Backend application will process the request, will send the JSON response to the UI. Whether backend is Java or backend is .NET or backend is Python, that is not important for the UI. For UI, what is important? Sending the request, receiving the response is important. So now here, can I develop my backend APIs with multiple technologies? Technology independence. In my company, I'm having only 10 Java developers and 10 .NET developers. I want to deliver my project to the client quickly. I can't wait for the Java developers. So some APIs I can develop by using Java, some APIs I can develop by using .NET, and I can deliver my project to the client. That technology independency also will be available when you go for microservices architecture. Are you able to follow me? Are you guys able to follow me? Yes. So what is microservices, guys? What is microservices? Microservices is a technology or microservices is an architecture pattern? Microservices is a technology or it is an architectural pattern? It is an architectural design pattern. What are the advantages with the microservices? Loosely coupling is one advantage. One functionality will be loosely coupled with the another functionality. Easy maintenance will be available. Fast development will be available. Quick deployment will be available. Faster releases will be available. Project will have less downtime and technology independence. What is the meaning of technology independence? We can develop backend APIs with multiple technologies. One API on Java, one API with .NET, one API with Python. That is also possible when you go for microservices architecture. Are you guys clear? So developing whole functionality of the project as a single application, that is called monolith. Developing the functionality as several APIs is called as microservices architecture. Now we understood what are the advantages with the microservices. Let us see the disadvantages with the microservices. Let us see the disadvantages with the microservices. So what are the disadvantages with the microservices? The disadvantages with the microservices, first one is bounded context. And the second one is lot of configurations. And the third one is visibility. And the fourth one is pack of cards. These are called as disadvantages with a microservices architecture. Okay, fine guys. So what are these disadvantages? First one is bounded context. Bounded context means deciding number of services to be created. For my application, how many microservices should be created? If you take Make My Trip application, how many REST APIs we need to develop? For which functionality we need to develop one REST API? Which functionalities can be combined in one REST API? For which functionality separate REST API should be created? Deciding that factor is very difficult when you go for microservices. Bounded context. Deciding number of services to be created for one project. For example, I want to develop one project for a new bank. Assume that in the Malaysia, one new bank is started. For the new bank, I want to develop one application. For that banking application, how many microservices I need to create? How many REST UI means only one project will be available. In the backend, how many services I need to create? Understanding the requirement and deciding number of services to be created is one of the biggest challenging thing in the microservices. If you go for a monolith, everything will be combined in one project. Single project will be created. All the functionalities will be developed. But when it comes to the microservices, deciding number of services we need to develop is one of the biggest challenging task in the microservices. And another problem, lot of configurations. So here, lot of configurations means my first microservice should talk to database configuration required. And for that, profiles configuration is required. My second actuators configuration is required. Database configuration is required. My second microservice also wants to talk to the database. In the second microservice also, I should write the database configuration, Kafka configuration, security configuration. Third microservice also should talk to the database. Here also, I need to write the configurations. That means we need to write duplicate configurations as we are developing several REST APIs in the backend. Every REST API for one functionality. Every REST API is one project. As we are developing several REST APIs, we need to do some configurations, common configurations in all the REST APIs. So that is called lot of configurations we need to do when it comes to microservices. And there will be a visibility problem. Visibility problem means you are allocated for trains booking functionality. From last 1 year, you are working only on the trains API. You don't know what is the logic in the hotels API. Hotels project is separate, trains project is separate in the backend. So in the first microservice, you are working on trains booking functionality. Second, another team is working on hotel booking in the another microservice. All are belongs to one application, but services are different in the backend. You will not have clear picture what code is available in the other APIs. Visibility problem will be available when it comes to microservices. When you go for a monolith, single project, complete code will be available at one place. You can check out the code from the GitHub. You can work on that project. You can understand the complete project flow when you run it in your system. But when it comes to microservices, so every project, every functionality is a separate API. Every API is a separate project. You will get the chance to work with only few APIs in the backend. You will not get the chance to work with the remaining APIs in the project. So you will have less visibility when you go for your microservices project. So simple example, in my current project, as I am working in the credit card management system in my company, so I'm responsible to develop that credit card management in my bank. Credit card applications, credit card expiry, credit card bill, credit card interest, credit card loan, all that information we will handle in our project. In our project, as of now, 150 microservices are available. In those 150 microservices, from last 3.5 years, I worked around 40 to 50 microservices. I know about only 50 microservices functionality in my project. Remaining 100 microservices functionality, I don't know. Those microservices developed by other teams in my project. They divided the teams. Our team involved in around 40 to 50 microservices development. I have the clarity about only these 40 microservices, how they will work, what code is there, what logic is there. I know about 40 to 50 microservices. What about remaining 100? I don't know. I don't have time to look into those services because every day I will have work related to my requirement, my functionality, my APIs. So that visibility problem will be available when you go for microservices architecture. Are you guys able to follow me? What are the challenges with the microservices? What are the challenges with the microservices? What are the challenges with the microservices, guys? What are the challenges with the microservices? There are several challenges available. First one is bounded context. So what is the meaning of bounded context? Deciding how many microservices we have to create. That is one of the biggest challenge. And the second one, lot of configurations will be available when it comes to microservices, because in the backend, we are going to develop several APIs. In the backend, we are going to develop several APIs, right? So if there is a API with database, Kafka, Redis communication, configurations we need to do. So other APIs want to communicate with the same database, configurations are required. So a lot of configurations we need to do in several APIs. Bounded context, lot of configurations problem and visibility problem will be available. What is the meaning of visibility problem? So you may not get the chance to work with all the REST APIs available in your project. You may get the chance to work with only few APIs available in the project, but not all the APIs that are available in the project. Visibility problem will come when you go for microservices architecture. Okay. And the last one is called pack of cards. Now, what is the meaning of pack of cards? Pack of cards means like a playing cards. If one main card is lost, then the whole game will be collapsed. So similarly, assume that all my microservices, hotels, flights, cabs, trains, every microservice depends on my payment microservice. If my payment microservice is down, that is very crucial in the project. So customer has to do the payment. So there is a microservice called payment microservice available. If a payment microservice is down, then other microservices will not work as expected. So if there is a failure in the crucial microservice, then the whole application will not work as expected. That is called pack of cards problem. Pack of cards means, so multiple playing cards will be available, 13 cards will be available. In that, if you miss one card, which is very crucial for game, then the whole cards, the remaining 12 cards, there is no use. So similarly, when it comes to the microservices, pack of cards problem will be available. So what is the meaning of pack of cards problem? If one crucial microservice is down, then the remaining microservices will be of no use. If one crucial microservice in your, the remaining microservices, hotels, flights, cabs, trains, they are collecting the data, but payment should happen at one microservice. If a payment microservice is down, then the remaining microservices are of no use. So like this, we need to give special care, high availability for crucial microservice that is available in our project. Okay, good guys. So let us see what we have discussed so far. We understood what is monolith architecture. Let's read these points. All of you, read the points. What is monolith architecture? Guys, do you like typing the notes, or if it is okay if I show the notes like this? If I'm typing, it is taking a lot of time, guys. Is this okay if I show the notes like this, or you want me to type in the class? No need to type now. If it is typing, it is wasting our time. So this is very simple English only. I have created these notes. Same notes I'm going to upload. Okay, na? Yeah. All of you, please read these points. What is microservice? What is monolith? If we develop all functionalities in single project, then it is called as monolith based application. So we will package our whole code as a single jar file or war file, and we will deploy. That jar file or war file is called as a fat jar or fat war. What are the advantages? Simple to develop. Everything is available at one place. Configuration required only once. Disadvantages: it is difficult to maintain. Dependencies among the functionalities. Single point of failure. Entire project redeployment will be required when you go for monolith. To overcome the problems of monolithic architecture, microservices architecture came into market. So microservices is not a programming language, guys. It is not a framework. It is not an API. Okay. Then what is microservices? Microservices is an design pattern. Okay. It is used to develop application functionalities with loosely coupling. In microservices architecture, we don't develop all the functionalities in single project. We will divide project functionalities into several REST APIs. One REST API is called as one microservice. Microservice architecture based project means collection of REST APIs. Microservices is not related to only Java. Any programming language project, specific project can use microservices architecture. So microservices means not only for Java people, it is universal pattern. Anybody can use microservices architecture to develop their project. So what are the advantages with the microservices? These are loosely coupled, easy to maintain, faster development will be available, quick deployment will be available, faster releases will be available, less downtime will be available, technology independence also will be available. We can develop backend APIs with multiple technologies. Some APIs on Java, some APIs on .NET, some APIs on Python that can be developed. For all the APIs, one UI will be available in the front end. So UI will send the request to particular backend API based on the user operation. If user want to book the flight, from the UI, request will go to flight API. If user want to book the train, from the UI, request will go to train API. Similarly, cabs, buses, all these things. If you go for e-commerce application, same thing. Cart functionality will be available in one API. Product functionality will be available in one API. Checkout functionality will be available in one API. Payment functionality will be available in one API. Like this, we can handle that. Like this, we can handle that. Are you clear? Are you clear with my project concept? Now, so with this, we understood advantages and disadvantages of the microservices. So these are advantages of the microservices: loosely coupling, fast development, quick deployment, less downtime, technology independence. Disadvantages also available: bounded context, deciding number of services that we need to develop in the project, identifying that is difficult. Lot of configurations we need to do in the project, because there are, assume that 20 microservices want to communicate with the database. Data source properties you have to write at 20 places. Same configuration we need to do at multiple places when you go for this microservices architecture. Visibility, you may not get the complete picture of your project because you will not get the chance to work with all the APIs available in the project. Pack of cards problem, if any crucial microservices fail, then the whole project microservices will be of no use. Good. So with this, we understood what is a monolith, what is microservice architecture. Now, the most important part is how to develop a project with a microservices architecture. Okay, guys, remember one point here. When we are going for microservices based project, there is no fixed architecture for microservices project. We don't have any fixed architecture for microservices. People are customizing microservices architecture according to their project requirement. Now, what I will do is, I will develop some APIs in the Java, REST APIs in the Java. Those REST APIs I will access from the UI. That is called microservice project only. So I am developing 6 REST APIs, one REST API for a hotel, another one for flight, another one for train, another one for cab, for bus, and for payment. So 6 APIs I am developing in the backend. These are 6 APIs I am accessing from the UI. That is called microservice architecture. So there is no fixed architecture for microservices, guys. We don't have any fixed architecture for microservices. People are customizing microservices architecture according to their project requirement. Most of the projects will use below components in the microservices architecture. If you see, this will be a common microservices architecture that we can see in the projects, right? So here backend APIs will be available. So if you see welcome API and greet API. So assume that these are 2 REST APIs that we are developing. These REST APIs are called as our microservices. So these REST APIs will be communicating with each other. That is called inter-service communication. And these REST APIs can talk to third-party REST APIs also. So in our project, we will be developing our REST APIs. One REST API can talk to another REST API. And our REST API can talk to third-party REST API. So that will be there. Then after, in our project, we are going to use service registry. Service registry, API gateway will be available, admin server will be available, Jipkin server will be available. This is service registry, API gateway, this admin server, Jipkin server, these all are Spring Cloud concepts. So by using these Spring Cloud concepts, we are going to develop our application. So here, using these all concepts, Jipkin server, admin server, service registry, API gateway, not mandate. So that's why I'm telling you, microservices architecture is not fixed. People are customizing this architecture according to their project requirement. So whatever the diagram that I'm showing you here, this is generalized architecture to develop our application with a microservices fashion. APIs will be available, service registry will be available, API gateway will be available, admin server will be available, Jipkin server will be available. One REST API in our project can talk to another REST API in the same project. That is called inter-service communication. To achieve the inter-service communication, we will go for FEN client. So as of now, we discussed only REST template and web client. So one REST API can talk to another REST API by using web client or REST template. Now in this microservices, we are going to understand FEN client that is used for inter-service communication. Okay, so here guys, when you see microservices architecture, we don't have any fixed architecture for microservices. People are customizing microservices architecture according to their project requirement. Most of the projects will use below components in the microservices architecture. One is service registry. We are using Eureka server as a service registry. And next one, services. These are called our backend REST APIs. Here I'm taking welcome API, greet API as my backend APIs. So these backend APIs will be registered with the service registry. So we can use Eureka server as a service registry. And whenever we have the services, one service can talk to another service. So that is called inter-service communication. To achieve this inter-service communication, we can go for PN client. PN client is used for inter-service communication. And here API gateway will be available. API gateway will act as a front gate for all the backend APIs in the project. Whatever the request is coming from the user request will go to API gateway. API gateway will route the request to particular API in the backend. API gateway will act as a mediator between end user and backend APIs. API gateway will be available. API gateway will act as a mediator between our end users and backend APIs. In my project, there are several APIs in the backend. End users want to access my backend APIs. End users want to access my backend APIs. Got it? So here, directly we don't give access for our backend APIs for the end users. Lot of security checks we need to perform. Lot of routings we need to perform. That's why end user request will go to API gateway. API gateway will route the request to actual APIs in the backend. Okay, what is admin server? Admin server is used to monitor and manage our application. We already discussed actuators. So now there are multiple APIs in the backend. All the backend APIs I want to monitor at one place. That's where admin server will come into picture. And I want to track the requests which are coming to API, which API has taken how much time to process my request. That can be monitored by using Jipkin server. Jipkin server is used for distributed log tracing. Whenever a request comes to our API, which request processed by which API, how much time it has taken to process that request, that information can be monitored by using Jipkin server. All the APIs, actuator endpoints, we can monitor at one place by using admin server. Service registry. Service registry is used to register all the services available in our project. What all the backend services available in our project? All the backend services will be registered with the service registry. So what are the services available in our project? Services and APIs both are same. What are the APIs available in our project? What is the name of the API? What is the URL of the API? What is the status of the API? Everything will be maintained by service registry. This is generalized architecture for microservices, guys. As I told you, using Jipkin server, not mandatory. Using admin server, not mandatory. Using service registry, not mandatory. Using API gateway, not mandatory. Some projects may use only service registry. Some projects may use API gateway and service registry. Some projects will use all the concepts. So it depends upon our project requirement. So that's why I'm telling you, there is no fixed architecture for microservices project. People are customizing microservices architecture according to their project requirement. Most of the projects will use below components in the microservices architecture. Most of the people will use below components in the microservices architecture. So what are those things, guys? First one is service registry. What is a service registry? Service registry act as a DB of services available in the project. In my project, how many services are available? What is the name of the service? What is the URL of the service? what is the status of the service. All that information will be available in the service registry. Our backend APIs will register with the Eureka. Eureka will provide a dashboard. In that dashboard, we can see what services available in our project, what is the name of the service, what is the status of the service, what is the URL of the service. So it will maintain a register with all the APIs available in our project. Service registry. So what is this service registry? Service registry is acting as a database of services available in the project. It provides the details of all the services which are registered with the service registry. So whatever the APIs available in the project, those APIs we are going to register with the service registry. So we can identify how many services available in the project. We can identify how many instances available for each service. We can use Eureka server as a service registry. Eureka server provided by Spring Cloud Netflix library. Eureka is a Spring Cloud server. By using Eureka, we can maintain services of our project. So what is service registry, guys? Service registry is acting as a database of our services in the project. So it will provide the details of the services. How many services? What are the names? What are the URLs? What is the status of each service? Everything we can get from the service registry. Next one, services. What are the services? Services are nothing but the REST APIs that we are having in our project. Services means the REST APIs that we have. For example, hotels API, trains API, cabs API, flights API, like this. So whatever the APIs that you are having in your project, those are called as services. Services means REST APIs are microservices that are available in the project. Services contains backend business logic, hotels booking, trains booking, cabs booking, flights booking, payment gateway, check out the products, cart, all this information, the logic will be available in the backend services. In the project, some services will interact with the database. In the project, some services will interact with a third-party REST API. In the project, some services will interact with other services in the same project. Inter-service communication will be available. Inter-service communication will be available. What is the meaning of inter-service communication? So in my project, there are two services available in the backend. One service will communicate with another service. That is called inter-service communication. Services are nothing but our REST APIs, guys. Services are nothing but our REST API. One REST API can communicate with another REST API in the same project. So that is called inter-service communication. Inter-service communication we are going to do by using VN client. And my service can talk to database, or my service can talk to another service in the same project. My service can talk to third-party service also, third-party REST API. Make my trip is there. Make my trip trains booking available. Make my trip trains booking will talk to IRCTC. IRCTC is a third-party REST API. So here service registry will be available and services also will be available. Services means REST APIs are microservices in the project. Services contains backend business logic. Some services will interact with the database. Some services will interact with the third-party REST API, external communication. Some REST services will interact with another services in the project, inter-service communication. For inter-service communication, we will use VN client. So to distribute the load, we can run one service with multiple instances, load balancing. If you see welcome API having 3 boxes, that means one REST API I will run in multiple servers to distribute the load. So here, so many requests are coming to my service. Then I will run my service in the 2 servers. That is called load balancing. I will explain what is load balancing in the microservices. Guys, are you clear with this service registry and the services part? Microservices architecture. Do we have any fixed architecture for the microservices, or architecture will different from project to project? Can I say this is the standard architecture that every company, every project will follow? No. No. Some people may not use service registry. Some people may not use VN client. Some people may not use API gateway. Some people may not use admin server. Some people may not use Zipkin server. But whatever the diagram that you are seeing, that diagram is generalized architecture that most of the projects will follow. This is the generalized architecture that most of the projects will follow, but not everybody. Are you clear? Are you clear? Yeah. What is a service registry here? What is the role of service registry here, guys? What is the role of service registry? It is used to register all the services available in our project. What is the meaning of service in the project? Service means the backend REST APIs. Here I'm taking welcome API, greet API. You can take product API, cart API, checkout API, hotels API, trains API, flights API, like that. So the services will be registered with the service registry. So which one we are going to use as a service registry? Eureka server we are going to use as a service registry. Who provided Eureka? Eureka provided by Spring Cloud concept, Spring Cloud library. We need to add the Spring Cloud dependency, then only we can use the Eureka. So service registry is used to register our services. Services nothing but backend APIs. Now you see my backend, there are 10 APIs available. One API can connect with another API. One API can connect with the database, and one API can connect with the third-party API. Different requirements will be available. So we already know how to develop the REST APIs. Backend services, backend APIs we need to develop. Third-party communications will be there. Database communications will be there. Inter-service communications also will be available. Okay, and the next one, API gateway. So API gateway is going to act as a front gate for all the APIs. Now, in our house, multiple rooms will be available. But if any person wants to come into our house, they need to come through main gate. So similarly, for all the backend APIs, the main gate is the API gateway. API gateway will receive the incoming traffic, will check the request is valid or not. Is the request coming from our client or not? It will do that authentication. Then only it will forward the request to actual API in the backend. API gateway will act as a mediator between end users and backend APIs in the project. So what is the role of API gateway in the microservices? So API gateway is used to manage backend APIs of the project. API gateway is used to manage our backend APIs of the project. API gateway acts as a mediator between end users and backend APIs. API gateway can filter the logic to decide request processing. API gateway will contain the filter logic to decide request processing. That means API gateway can perform authentication. It can check whether the request is coming from our client or not. API gateway will contain routing logic. Routing logic means which request is coming to our project, which request should go to which API in the backend. That routing logic will be available. If you see in the API gateway, I mentioned filters and routing. So which request should be processed, which request should not be processed, that will be decided by our API gateway. And which request should go to which service in the backend, that also will be decided by our API gateway. In the API gateway, filters will be available and routings also will be available. Filters are used to decide whether to process the request or not. Routing is used to decide which request should go to which API in the backend. Okay, guys, if you see this, when you click on flights, in the URL, it is changing to flights. When I click on hotels, it is going to hotels. When I click on trains, it is going to railways. When I click on cabs, it is going to cabs. So based on the URL, our API gateway will route the request to particular API in the backend. API gateway is going to act as a front gate for all the APIs in the backend. API gateway is used to manage our backend APIs of the project. API gateway acts as mediator between end users and the backend APIs. API gateway can filter the logic. API gateway can contain filter logic to decide request processing. API gateway can contain routing logic to decide which request should go to which backend API. API gateway also will be registered with the service registry. Spring Cloud Gateway we can use as API gateway. Spring Cloud Gateway we can use as API gateway. That is, Spring Cloud Gateway we can use as API gateway. Earlier, people used to work with Joule proxy for the API gateway, but in the recent versions of the Spring Boot, Joule is removed and they supported Cloud Gateway. Okay, and we are having one more concept called admin server. Admin server is used to monitor and manage all the backend APIs at one place, actuator endpoints. Admin server is used to manage all backend APIs, actuator endpoints at one place. Now, so I'm having multiple APIs in the backend. For every API, I will add the actuator. Actuators are used to monitor and manage our application. Monitoring first API endpoint, second API endpoint, third API endpoint separately will be difficult. That's why all the APIs endpoints I will monitor at one place. That's where admin server comes into picture. So our backend APIs will be registered. Our backend APIs will be registered with admin server. Admin server will provide user interface. Admin server will provide user interface to monitor backend APIs. Admin server will provide user interface to monitor APIs, actuator endpoints. Right? Admin server is used to manage all the backend APIs, actuator endpoints at one place. Our backend APIs will be registered with admin server. Admin server will provide user interface to monitor API, actuator endpoints. Now, if you observe, I have few APIs in the backend. All the backend APIs are registered with the admin server. All the backend APIs registered with the admin server. Then what admin server will do? Admin server will provide one user interface to monitor actuators of our APIs. Every project will have actuator, right? So to monitor the actuator endpoints, we will go for admin server. If admin server is not available, you need to hit the every API URL endpoint separately. Instead of that, all the APIs can be monitored, can be managed at one place by using admin server. And next one, we are having Jipkin server. Next one, we are having Jipkin server. Jipkin server, it is used for distributed log tracing. Jipkin server is used for distributed log tracing. Jipkin server is used for distributed log tracing. Using this, we can monitor. Using this, we can monitor which API is taking more time to process our request. Jipkin server is used for distributed tracing. Using this Jipkin, we can monitor which API is taking more time to process our request. We can track a failure point also by using Jipkin server. Suppose, for example, I send a request from UI to one microservice. That one microservice is calling another microservice. That microservice calling another microservice. So 3 microservices are involved in my request processing. In these 3 microservices, how much time first microservice has taken? How much time second microservice has taken? How much time third microservice has taken? Total how much time taken to process my request? That information can be monitored by using Jipkin server, that is called distributed tracing. So to achieve distributed tracing in our application, we will use Jipkin server. So this is called generalized microservices architecture. Most of the people will follow this, but it's not mandatory to follow all these components. From project to project, microservices architecture will be different. But so if you want to attend the interview, you should have idea on all these concepts. What is API gateway, right? What is service registry? What is admin server? What is a Jipkin server? What are the backend APIs? So in the interview, all these concepts are very, very, very important. Now, are you able to understand what is a monolith? What is microservices? What are the challenges with the monolith? Advantages with the monolith? Advantages with the microservices? Disadvantages with the microservices? And what is microservices architecture? What is service registry? What is API gateway? What is admin server? What is Jipkin server? What are the backend APIs? Now guys, by using all these concepts, we are going to develop one mini project. So microservices means REST API development. Already we completed our REST API development. The only thing is we need to understand how to configure all these components, how to configure Jipkin server, how to configure admin server, how to configure Eureka, how to configure gateway, how to implement all these things in one project. That we need to understand. In the next session, we are going to implement a project with all these components. One by one, we are going to implement. One day we cannot complete all these things. It may take 2 days to 3 days of time to complete one project with all these components. Are you clear? Perfect. Any questions, anybody? You can ask me. Come on, guys.
Hello, sir.
Yeah, hi.
Sir, can you tell us the demerits, sir? I can't understand.
Sorry?
Sir, demerits of microservices, disadvantages.
Disadvantages. Yeah.
Okay.
Bounded context. Bounded context. That means when the project requirement is there, how many microservices we need to develop in that project? That is a confusing part. Okay. Directly, you can't say that I need to develop 20 services in the project. You need to do a lot of research and analysis on the functionality. Then only we can decide how many services we need to develop. And every microservice should have some common configuration. I want to connect with the database. In every project, you need to write the data source properties. And as you are developing in microservice based project, as you are working on that project, you may not get the chance to work with all the APIs in your project. That is called visibility problem.
Okay.
Pack of cards, nothing but. So if any crucial, suppose for example, in the e-commerce application, if a payment gateway service is not working, then business loss will be there. The remaining microservices are working, but payment gateway is the crucial part in the e-commerce. Payment gateway service is not working. So all the remaining services will become useless. That is called pack of cards.
Sir, you are saying payment gateway is not working. That's fine. Even in it is there, same problem will be there in monolithic also, not only in the microservices.
Yeah, in the monolith also will be there. In this microservices, if payment gateway is not working, still people can go and select the products and they can add the products to their cart and they can check the previous orders and all. Right?
Right.
In the monolith, the whole project will be down. Here, they cannot purchase the product, but remaining operations they can perform in the project, right?
Right. Even microservices also, the user interface, the other functionalities can they do now without. Yeah, without the payment gateway, it's okay. They can do. There is no stop.
Right.
No stopper on this.
Okay. Right. So it's not a blocker.
Yeah. And the visibility side, sir. Visibility, we don't require to see it on the entire project level. Might be different teams are taking it.
Correct.
So even monolithic also we will be doing. But
in the monolith means, so the whole project code you will check out one project, you will run it in your system. You can, whenever you have time, you can check it. But in the microservice, it is difficult.
Right. Okay, got it.
Sir, can you explain that free incline, sir?
Sir, today is the first session, sir.
Okay, just the introduction, sir. I didn't get.
We will develop that. So if you want to earlier, How Make My Trip communicated with IRCTC?
Web client.
By
Web
using web client and by
Yeah.
using REST template. Now we can use PN client in place of that. How to use it? Upcoming class.
Sir, and for monitoring this web service, this microservice can use Prometheus, sir.
Prometheus Grafana, yes, we can use for monitoring purpose. Jipkin server is used also for monitoring, that is a distributed monitoring, which request processed by which service, how much time has it taken by each service to process the request can be monitored by using Jipkin. Jipkin is for distributed tracing.
Okay.
Sir, I have one doubt. In microservice architecture, we are using API gateway and service registry, correct? If we are not using API gateway service registry, so how we will secure in our application with Spring security with that?
Yeah, you need to implement that Spring security in every API that you are developing.
Okay, sure, sir.
If you don't want to do that, you can write that security at the API gateway. At one place you can do it. So you don't need to write the same logic in all the APIs.
Okay, otherwise we need to implement all the APIs, correct?
Right.
Okay, sure. Thank you, sir.
Perfect, guys. So I will upload these notes. We'll meet in the next session. Thank you. In the next session, we are going to develop this project.